All right, got myself a drink here. What I really wanted to play was Battlefield 2142, which I used to play quite a bit when I was younger. And I've got with the private server set up, but OBS does not like the game. OBS does not like the game at all. So I had to compromise and do Renegade X, which actually wasn't really that fun. I mean, I could do StarCraft while we watch this if you want. Get something going.
What are you willing to sacrifice for? Are you willing to sacrifice more for your family, or are you willing to sacrifice more so that career? And having that distinction in mind is
Why
very...
are you yelling at me?
So, ladies, what are your number one priorities in life at this current moment? And do you think they're conducive to finding the man you want to inevitably settle down with? Also, big W for the show earlier.
The reason this conversation is confusing me, or this topic in general, just because it's just not binary. It's not like you gotta not have a career to have a husband, and you gotta and if you have a career, you can't have a. It's like it's not binary. Like you can have two things can be true, bro. It's like what you're saying is the guy may not care, right? Oh, she's a fucking CEO, let me fuck her, right? He might not be thinking that. It doesn't have to be a deterrent. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be. I'm not saying it doesn't have to be a deterrent.
It's not binary. Here's the thing. Ultimately, clarity is everything,
Did she
right?
add this really bad music? Like the music is just not great.
To see the end in mind and having that clarity, that depth of vision. And for guys, that's oftentimes a lot of the time easier because having a family does not come at an expense of a career because the two are not mutually exclusive. Whereas for a woman, oftentimes it is because it's very hard to direct equal amount of focus into both things. It's not to say that you can't have both, but which one are you going to prioritize ultimately, and being able to make those decisions very early on and decide what are you willing to sacrifice in order to get to that goal.
Even if we go with that premise, right? What do they do in the meantime? I guess that's my main question. Like, yeah, okay, if you want to sacrifice and give up everything for a man,
we're skipping the
a really interesting episode. I did a little bit of research on Brendan Carter beforehand. He seemed like a really interesting guest. He seemed to, be a little bit more on the positive side. There's a lot of stuff that I really love about the Red Pill, don't get me wrong, but some of it kind of borderlines and verges on stuff that's a little bit nihilistic at times. And although it may be true and possibly rooted in, biology, evolutionary psychology, I think, at least from what I gathered from Brendan's message, even if that's true, does it really serve us to be focusing on that?
You might even have a good girl. You might even meet a girl who's like good, but you're going to be looking for her flaws. You know what I'm saying?
He seems like someone who was Red Pill aware, who also held, a slightly different mindset and perspective. I was excited to talk with him. I mean, ultimately, we seem to come to some type of agreement, I guess, somewhere there in the end. But for a second, I really felt like he was committed to misunderstanding me and really trying to say that I just didn't want the girls to have any type of career or ambition or anything like that whatsoever. I definitely don't believe that.
But it sounds like you're just telling these girls, hey, you guys shouldn't do fucking nothing.
That's not what I'm trying to say.
I know, cool, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is how it's coming off, right? So if I'm wrong, please correct me, right? It sounds like, you girls want to work? What, you 18? You want to go to school, get a job? The fuck are you doing, man? You need to be out here looking for a baller, right? Like that.
That's not what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying, where I see some contradictions because there literally aren't enough high value men to take care of all of these women here. So I totally get it. But what I'm saying, all I can speak from is my personal experience, right? And I know from the age of 18 to 26, 27, right? Just from the last couple of years, I made a lot of money. I've done a lot of things. I moved across the world. I've traveled, and none of it ever made me fulfilled.
Well, I do think that what Myron says and what, the RP, preaches in general is kind of true in the sense that, like, ultimately a high value man isn't really going to give a fuck about your income or your career or anything like that. But I think having and setting goals and the person you need to grow into in order to achieve those goals is ultimately what is going to, number one, just improve your character, your relationships in general, but also enable you to attract a high value man. In some instances, the other end of that is when you immerse yourself in your career and you forego everything else, you can't help.
They're still on this talking point, which it's so sad because it's been debunked so many freaking times that that women are going to be dating these super ultra wealthy guys, and that these super ultra wealthy guys that they just want to date the Starbucks from barista, the fucking Starbucks barista. That's all they care about. Like, it's so cringe because it's not true at all. People date roughly at their same social class. So rich people are largely dating other rich people. Poor people are largely dating other poor people. I know there are obviously exceptions, but by and large, the vast majority of people date within their own social class. There's not a huge number of millionaires and billionaires who are out there dating McDonald's employees. Like, it's just not a thing. And like the man, yeah, of course, like the man does care. Like the man does. I mean, maybe like the red pill men particularly, but like the vast majority of men, like they actually do want a wife or partner who's going to be driven in life and going to have goals. And like those goals can be family related, they can be education related, they can be career related, they can be hobby related, they can be any number of things. But they want them to have some sort of goal or drive in life.
but to adapt these more masculine qualities.
When you are entirely career driven, you're going to ultimately end up absorbing and exemplifying a lot of characteristics that maybe take you out of the ideal mother, the ideal partner, because oftentimes in order to succeed in your career, you do need to kind of take on more masculine characteristics, which can sometimes maybe make you not as sensitive as a partner, maybe not as empathetic as a mother, these various other things. So I think it's not more so about it's this or that, but more so being mindful of these things and these various different things that really impact the journey, and ultimately knowing where you want to go and making your decisions accordingly. It's not like it's this or that, but just having more awareness.
I feel what you're saying, right? But you can be this way at work and be a different way at home.
I do see it from both perspectives.
True. These are not dichotomous. Like I talked about this on the last stream. You can have like a wide range of personality traits that don't always manifest themselves in any and all circumstances, right? Like you can be extremely compassionate and caring in one circumstance and then be like an extremely strict boss in another circumstance. Or you could, I mean, people possess a huge array of different personalities, and these are going to appear in different ways. Like if you, the way you are at work is going to be different from the way you are at home with your family. The way you are when you're going out for drinks is going to be different from the way you are at work and with your family. The way you are when you're at a, let's say, a convention or a festival or some other cultural phenomenon is going to be way different as well. Like there's going to be a huge gradation, or the way you are in church or in a mosque or whatever. There's going to be a huge gradation. And how do you get more units? All the text is in Korean, and I don't read Korean, so I actually don't know. I've not played this version before. I assume you put them on the beacon, but I don't know. Or maybe this is what everyone else is doing. I guess they're getting random units from this. But no, the way you operate in the world is going to be different depending on a huge array of factors, including the context that you find yourself in. So like the idea that like, oh well, you were masculine in the workplace, quote unquote, therefore you can't be a good mother, or you're masculine in church, or I don't know, I'm not even sure, you're feminine, you're a good cook, therefore you can't be a good worker. Like it's so weird. It's so weird.
I believe that women should be able to be liberated. They should be able to work. They should be able to do whatever they want. And ultimately, I'm not going to denote or dictate to anybody what's going to bring them the ultimate level of happiness or fulfillment. I can only speak from personal experience. However, we can also look to biology and evolutionary psychology. And like I mentioned in the actual debate, there are 4 main happiness chemicals. And the most powerful one is the chemical of oxytocin. 2 of the chemicals are like selfish. And then the third one is also kind of selfish because it is still derived from yourself or how others perceive you. Oxytocin is a selfless happiness chemical, which you can only get from genuinely connecting with people in your life, being of service to those that you love, being in genuine committed relationships, having children, starting a family. You can also get it from your career where you genuinely serve and benefit the people around you. But definitely that like the best cheat code for that and the easiest way to achieve that for a woman is for sure by starting a family.
Oxytocin. This is the best chemical of all. Oxytocin is the feeling of love and trust and friendship. It's all the warm and fuzzies. It's all the unicorns and rainbows. It's the reason we like to spend time with our friends even if we don't do anything with them. We just sit and watch TV. We love their company. When women give birth to children, huge surge of oxytocin in their body. This is what's responsible for the mother-parent, the mother-child bond.
Am I to say you can't derive happiness or your oxytocin from anywhere else? No, absolutely not. But biologically, this is what we are inclined and predispositioned to do.
I'm definitely not telling you guys to just work at McDonald's or something. I mean, I know that's something that some red pillers say, like, hey, I'd rather date a girl who just works. Like, I don't agree with that. What I'm saying is just don't lose sight of what's actually like really matters, like in here for what you want to pursue, for the expedient shit.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Don't lose sight of it. But like,
that's what I'm trying to say as well. The question here was literally like, what is your long-term goal, and is that conducive to finding a husband? That's what I was answering on the basis of.
And so I've realized not only from my own experience, like I said, I've achieved many goals, and you're always looking towards the next thing. You think you're going to achieve the milestone, and then all of a sudden you're going to be happy. Life's going to be perfect, and it never ends up happening because again, that's not how we're wired. That's not how it works with goals. Going back to the happiness chemicals, goals actually relate to the chemical of dopamine, which is a very powerful chemical, but it's also one of the most dangerous chemicals because it's very, very addictive. And that's why people get addicted to success. They get addicted to achieving their goals and setting that next goal, and they're always in the pursuit of something, but they never land on anything. They're never truly happy or fulfilled. And so it's very important to have both. It's important to have a balance. But the reason why I was so adamant in that conversation, in that debate, is again because I've achieved the goals. I've made the money. I've done this, that, and the third. And I know what I really want over the period of the next couple of years is to settle down. I want a family. I want kids. That's what's going to make me happy. And that is also evident in biology. Now, would I have admitted that as like an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old or a 22-year-old like the girls on the show? No, probably not. You know, they need to go through their own experience. And I'm not trying to deprive them of that. I'm not telling them to go get
She pointed out, perhaps unintentionally, something that is very common on Fresh and Fit, that they bring on the people to represent the women, and they're always like these 18-year-old Instagram models. It's like you're getting such like a weird subsection of women. Like the vast majority of women aren't 18-year-old Instagram models or OnlyFans girls. Like those are the only people that they're trying to find on. Well, not the only people, but the vast majority of the people that they try to bring onto their show. And like ask them like, oh, well, what do you want in life? It's like, well, you're an 18-year-old OnlyFans girl. Like, what you're going to want in life is going to be very, very different from the average person. But no, it's actually true that like what you want in life is definitely does change over time. Like it's changed drastically in my own life. Like I when I was younger, I wanted to. I mean, up until like probably like a year and a half ago, I was very much more like a party, but not kind of a party person, but also focused on focused on purely career and education and having fun. Like those three things were like the central driving force of my life. Now, over the course of time, it's changed. Like I still care about having fun. I don't have to worry about education as much anymore. I mean, I guess we're always learning and growing in certain ways, but I mean, like a formal education, not really a top priority. I graduated. I mean, could always go back to school, I guess, theoretically. Um, but no, right now it's pretty much career. I guess this to some extent, building out this YouTube presence, the streamer presence, and also settling down, having a family, and maintaining and building stronger friendships. Like I've got some really great friends in real life, and I enjoy their company. I enjoy spending time with them. So it's multiple different things. It's building the family. Well, getting promoted at work, or possibly finding a better employment opportunity too. You always have to keep your eyes open for what's out there. And so career, family, and fun and friendships. Like that's like the big four things right now in my life. And right now family has become like increasingly important, and so has building friendships. But like the idea of like I'm gonna have a party with like 20 people, like I've done that. I've had that phase in my life where I'll have like fucking 20 people over. Literally like 22 people I think we had for a couple of the parties. Wild. Fun. It was great. It was great. But like that's not what I'm looking to do currently. And then like, that priority in my life has changed.
A job at McDonald's or Starbucks or some of the other ridiculous stuff that the red pill guys say. But going back to the question, right? What are you prioritizing the most right now? And is that going to lead you to the high value man that you want in the future? I stick by my answer.
How many of you want to pay the majority of the bills when you're in a relationship with a man? Any of you? None of you. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so all of you are pretty much looking for a man to be a provider or a predominant breadwinner in the relationship, but by default, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually think it should be based more on. I think it has to be a conversation between you and your partner. I think that if you're both working at, if you're both working at McDonald's, then it probably should be 50-50. Like one person, unless like one person's like a manager and making a lot more, for instance. But like if you're both making about the same amount of money, it should probably be about 50-50. Now, other expenses like could come into that more. Like let's say that one person, you want to have like one person works part-time, the other person works full-time, but the other person, the part-time person, stays home and takes care of the kids. Like that, you could have a conversation about that and discuss that amongst yourselves to define what works best for you. Like I don't think there's like a fixed like it has to be exactly this percentage of payment. Like I don't think that's not a thing. It depends on the person, it depends on the circumstances. And it should just be a conversation between you and your partner. But if you're making about the same amount of money and have about the same responsibilities, then it probably should be 50-50. Like if I'm dating someone when they're making the same amount of money as me, but I'm paying all of the bills and we don't have kids and she's like staying at home taking care of the kids, like no, I'm not going to just sit there and pay all the bills while she does nothing and she's not taking care of kids or anything like that. Or I think it's a shared responsibility. It's a partnership. So you have to discuss that with your partner and be like, okay, I'm working, you're not, you're working, I'm not, whatever. Or we're both working and we're trying to raise kids. Like we have to find something that works for you. And that's going to be, you can't have some universal rule. It's got to be dependent on you and your partner and like what you discuss and agree to and what the circumstances of that relationship are.
So I think what Amy was trying to describe, right, which I agree with and understand, women, on average, most women want a relationship with a man who's going to be the predominant breadwinner and leader in the relationship, right? And be able to work kind of from a leisure standpoint, work because she wants to electively versus mandatorily versus the man is the main provider, right? And what Amy is saying is that the pursuit of resources, income, and status, right, contradicts that to a degree. And the reason why is because a woman has a finite amount of time to utilize her beauty to get the highest status man that she can, because beauty is a woman's main commodity. Men sell success, women sell sex, right? So what she's saying is, if you prioritize your career in your 20s, which is great, I think what she's trying to say, and I'm going to kind of give it a mindset on this, women need to go into it with their eyes wide open. And what I mean by this is, you guys that are single, that are young, pursue your career, go to school, chase the success. However, I think women need to have a shifting priority here, where if the right guy comes along, that can be this predominant breadwinner, etc., you need to be able to shift that priority to him and put your career on the back burner. I think that's the most important and applicable advice for modern day women, because of course,
like this in and of itself is not like the world's worst advice, but it is so heavily caveated. You'd have to like so heavily caveat this advice if you're giving it to someone seriously. Like, oh, well, I'm about to graduate and get my doctorate in medicine, and I've been trying to be a doctor my whole life. But 2 months ago, I met this guy, and I seem to really like him a lot, and I think we could have something serious. So should I just leave medical school and just give up on all that whole dream, leave my residency, and just go become this guy's housewife? Like, I don't fucking know. Like, that's a huge fucking risk you're taking, a huge gamble, and I don't think that. I don't think you can just say like, oh yeah, for sure. Like, now, again, it's so heavily caveated. Like, this is sort of like the problem, one of the problems, like what is many problems with the red pill. First of which is like this weird obsession with material things. This weird obsession with material things. Like, they're like obsessed with, I need to have like 500 sports cars, and I need to have luxury watches, and I need to have like all these status symbols. Like, it's just absurd. It's like the cringiest, least healthy view on masculinity you could find, I feel. Like, that's not a good way to live your life or to be a man. Like, I'm a man because I have 400 sports cars. Like, it's the dumbest, most banal thing ever. It's not going to bring you happiness. It's not going to bring your family happiness. It's not going to do anything for you. Like, does having 500 sports cars, like, does it help you show off your wealth and flaunt your wealth? Yeah, sure, I guess. But what do you get out of that? Now, there's the one-ended open relationships where you believe in polyamory, but only for the man, where the man should have like 6 or 7 side hoes in addition to his main wife, or have like 6 or 7 wives. But if the woman so much is like looks at another guy for like half a second on the street, like, oh my God, all of a sudden, she's a hoe, she's a whore, how dare she can't do that. It's this weird double standard. There's just like a lot wrong with this. And it's just bad advice, or extremely, extremely caveat advice. Like, what advice is there that is good? You'd have to caveat so much, because like human beings are so fucking different. And the idea that you're going to find like this one size fits all, this is the one answer to get any girl you want. Like, this is it. You have to go buy my program, or you have to go get like 400 sports cars, and like you want to go into fucking McDonald's and flaunt like 15 watches and be like, oh yeah, look at me, and then you'll get the hot cashier girl to take home to be your wife. Like, it's the craziest shit ever. Like, and for the vast majority of people, this isn't going to work. Like, their advice might not be super awful if you're like a billionaire. If you're like a millionaire top 1% person, and you could just walk into any, restaurant, walk into a Target, a Starbucks, a McDonald's, a fucking Burger King, whatever, and just like flaunt all your wealth to the cashier, like, you might get laid, but like, I'm not sure that's not a recipe for a successful long-term relationship.
Most guys are not going to be able to support and take care of you, right, as a single breadwinner, right?
That's the same shit I'm saying.
Yeah.
What are they going to do in the meantime? I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. I agree with you.
Yeah. So I think women need to be able to shift and understand that if you find that guy in that time with that window, like, you need to be able to shift. I think the issue is the girl that, let's say she's in med school or about to go to med school, and she finds that fucking guy, and he says, I want you to move with me, blah, blah, blah. And she says, no, I'm going to prioritize my career. Great. You can do that, but understand that guy might not come along again. Mm-hmm. Are you okay with that? And I would argue that a lot of girls think that they can
like again, it's so heavily caveat. I think generally the best advice is finish your fucking schooling because a lot of relationships don't work out, and you're going to have to. If you drop out of school, you're probably not going back. Like I know, of course, you can go back, but most people, or I don't know about most, but a lot of people who drop out of school end up regretting it for the rest of their lives. And even if they do go back, it's like 10, 15, 20 years later, and they've missed out on all that earning potential. So generally, dropping out of school, bad idea. Bad idea. Especially for a relationship. Now, there might be some exceptions where, like, you've known this person for a long time, you are very dedicated to each other, you're in your first semester or second semester, your grades aren't very great, you don't think that you can graduate anyway because you're really struggling with this, and you're pretty sure you're gonna flunk out. Like, okay, like maybe then you can weigh different options, but the idea that as a general matter you should just like drop out of med school to go live with some rich guy who showed you his watch, like, I don't know, that doesn't seem like a great idea.
Find another guy. A lot of the times you won't, because a lot of guys will say, I want you to split 50-50 with me. I want this to be a partnership, whatever, because we live in a very feminized world where guys don't understand being leaders and being dominant anymore. It's okay to chase a career, but be prepared to shift priorities if the right guy comes along, right? Because of course you got to earn for yourself, and we live in a world now where single income is very difficult to live off of. But if that guy comes along, are you prepared to make that sacrifice? Which I think you should make that sacrifice, because you can always go back to school. You can always gain a skill. You can always make more money, but you can't necessarily always.
See, I don't think the red pill people have ever lived in the real world. You could always go back to school. You can always go learn another new skill. Like, yeah, theoretically, sure. But when you're in the real world and you've got like fucking kids and you got a fucking, you're divorced or you're, or who knows what the fuck. The idea that you're going to be like, okay, I'm working full time. I'm trying to raise my kids, but my partner left me 3 years ago. Now I'm going to go back to school. Like, what? Like, what? Like, you might want to go back to school, but damn, that's like so far away from like what you're able to actually practically do. And if you do have to go back to school, well then fuck. Now you're not going full time. Now you're taking like 2 fucking night classes a week, and because that's all you can fucking afford, and that's all you can afford to take the time off from work to do. And like, yeah, no, it's a totally different thing. Like this advice, it just seems like they've never lived in the real world and operated in the real world, the red pill people. Like, that's not how real people operate. Now, maybe if you're like super fucking rich, right? I don't know if maybe like Myron hit it off and got like $1 million like when he was like 22 years old and won the lottery or something. But like most people aren't like this. Like most people are like, oh, well, I can just go drop $100,000 on school and take out all this debt. Well, I've got like kids, and while I've got a family, and while I've got fucking work, and while I've got 15 other things going on. Like, no.
Always find the right guy at your peak.
All right, guys, it is my bedtime. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I'm going to be linking the Fresh and Fit episode down in the description. If you enjoyed this, go ahead and do all the things. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, ring that notification bell so you never miss a future episode, and check out my Patreon for more behind the scenes content.
All right, we'll probably end up wrapping this up